Hello, everyone. So I really am going to dive into technical details here, so allow me to get ahead of it. So KDB-X, effectively, we are combining all of the developer products at KX, and with that, we will create a platform of developer tools based on the foundation of KDB, and essentially, we're going to modernize the platform for everyone. I think this has been covered, so I will say what we are releasing as part of GI will be module management that is fundamentally taking the code that developers write and making it a lot more portable, a lot more isolated, a lot more reusable for the community and the ecosystem to thrive, for new users to get started much quicker. There's a lot more framework that they can get started with, and we will be working with partners. Lots of people asking, can they contribute modules, which is great. And Johnny is going to touch on this in his presentation too. Open file format support. This is exactly what it sounds like. This is, can I use the QSQL language against a data format that is not the native KDB format? So we are releasing this as part of GA on November 17th. It is currently available in the public preview as of today. And yeah, please take it for a spin, give us feedback. We are also releasing a bunch of modules. So in the Insights product that we've had for the last number of years, we've actually taken a lot of that functionality and have brought it into the KDB-X platform. The initial candidates will include curl object storage, the PGWire, SQL support, the REST server, and there are additionally going to be a bunch of open source modules. The modules going forward are all going to be open source. So generally, you will start to see us, as partners will, hosting these on GitHub, open source, and available for everyone as modules. So I really wanted just to show some of the innovation that we've been doing over the past number of months since we kind of did the last set of meetups in New York and London. Hopefully you can make this out. But yeah, we kicked off with the first public preview drop. We've had a number of, I guess, expert releases where we've had some of the huge KDB advocates that have been in the community for 20, 30 years, giving us deep feedback on what we should do in the core product from a management on library perspective, including some of the newer modules that we're releasing. We will have a perpetual preview process going forward. So think of this as essentially getting a little bit earlier than the T versions. So coming in and giving feedback, and maybe influencing design more than has happened in the past. So yeah, we've been releasing steadily over the last number of months. Again, if you focus on the top right, we've just released the Parquet support today. We've also added a regex and a blast library. So similarly to some of the GPU work that we are also in incubation at the moment, this will also just massively help with things like matrix multiplications. So yeah, I'm going to really double click into modules in Parquet now. So what are we doing and why? So if you've ever developed a library, you will know you can get into all sorts of bother with namespace clashes. Modules are essentially a concept that we've innovated that are going to unify and maybe make it much safer the idea of building libraries for KDB. So with that, the core team have innovated and delivered some new functionality that you can think of as import as. So in traditional libraries, you are actually using libraries, and the library itself depicts where the library functions and variables will get stored. In modules, that is completely left to the user. So there's much more safety. With that, we're going to see more productivity. We're going to see a big impact to the community, more components. Teams are going to hopefully start to share more code, and similar to some of the things that our partners are doing, in the example of Data Intellect, they're going to actually take some of the Torque source code, decompose that, make it available as modules. I don't want to steal any of Johnny's thunder, so I'll leave that. And yeah, our products are also going to evolve to take advantage of modules. The ecosystem should hopefully see a much broader set of tools that they can get started with. And yeah, we're going to also look towards things like package registry. So like other languages that are popular in the data science space, we want to start curating these, hosting these, having a registry, And I'll talk to kind of some future work that we're planning. So what is a module? A module essentially is something on the file system that when loaded, the user is actually loading it into a private namespace, not into the regular namespace that you would be familiar with. So they're isolated in the sense that they don't tend to clash. They're portable in the sense that they are easy to rename in memory or even on disk. So essentially you can copy these around, you can move them to whatever path you want. They're isolated and very easy to kind of have in a certain path. They can obviously be written in our native languages, and every module now actually defines an interface. So I'll show that in the next slide. And they are today essentially load once. So we are also going to look at force-free loads so that you can actually have that use case as well. So what does a module look like? Essentially here, this is 3 modules. So I have A, B, and C. In KDB-X, there's a search path. We will have that as key path, and you can set that to whatever you want. That can be a list. You can have lots of different search paths. And most importantly, the library itself can essentially load relative to where it is. It can load absolute, it can load child, parent, sibling. But the library will, and the module will actually define the public interface. So if you look carefully at the bottom line, you can see we are exporting 3 keys in this dictionary. So get, v, bar, and baz. And if I skip forward to the actual client where I'm consuming that library, I use b. I essentially set that as lib, and lib has all the functions of that library. And yeah, I never have to worry about things that could actually generate unsafe code or clashes. In the example of use v, I'm actually looking for something that doesn't exist. So you can see how KDB-X is actually searching for the library or the source code that makes up that library. So that's all available in public preview. The docs are out. We're starting to see partners contribute modules, and we have a whole bunch of things planned. And now for Parquet. So Parquet, what are we doing? Again, it is what it says it is, QSQL against other formats. And we've obviously started with Parquet. What we're doing here is available through the native runtime. It's also available through PyKX in the Python runtime. And essentially, we are handling all of the data type conversion. We're handling compression libraries. We're supporting different encoding types, different support for row groups, and I guess predicate pushdown and pruning are also supported. Virtual tables are essentially, they look like tables, right? I guess the similar concept is a HDB, where you have effectively a bunch of smaller files and smaller tables that comprise a larger table. So in the case of KDB-X, we've introduced a new table type, and it just looks like KDB. You run QSQL against it. It supports table operations. Some of these might actually be extensible in the future, which is pretty cool. And yeah, you get the benefit of things like pruning and row groups. And yeah, I think we're definitely not recommending that you replace all of your KDB data with Parquet. There's extensive benchmarking that's going on at the moment. Another open source library that we'll be releasing. And yeah, it's pretty exciting. So for anything that is exploratory, for anything that is, I guess, a new data set that you want to onboard, that you want to get run some Q against, and that could be, I guess, any type of Parquet data. We've obviously released a whole bunch, and I think more testing. Anyone that gets hands-on with it, please run it through your own data sets and let us know how it performs. Let us know some of the queries that you're running, and maybe share some of the metadata with us, and we can harden it if required. Virtual columns is essentially taking the partitioning scheme of, I guess, think of KDB as it has a date partitioning scheme. It's a folder structure on disk. Virtual columns is a very similar concept. So date being a virtual column in a table. What we're doing with Parquet is a very similar thing. So you can actually curate your own virtual columns. And that's quite exciting because of how that might impact the KDB file format, which I'll talk about in a moment. So yeah, your filters don't have to be ordered first. So date equals, etc. You can have them anywhere in the clause. And yeah, it'll also support many levels of many levels and many virtual columns. What does that look like? So virtual tables, again, if I have this Parquet layout, these are folders, EX equals LSE for the exchange, NYQ, and then similarly I have Parquet files underneath a date directory. What that looks like in the QSQL world is essentially I have a column called date and a column called exchange. This obviously allows me to minimize the amount of data that I'm reading. So if I'm okay for time, I have 2 demos. Cool. Demo 1 is install. So Ashok mentioned we have been busy with the developer center. So I'm going to go to the developer center. I am going to search for KDB-X. And what we have here is tutorials. We have everything that's coming roadmap-wise. We have resources, tutorials, the academy. And we're also going to integrate with docs. And yeah, I think there's quite a lot coming. When I go to install, this is my community edition. So the license was in the top right. I have installation steps. I copy the command. I jump to my terminal. And yeah, I essentially paste and run the install. So what we're doing here is we're setting up a default location for KDB-X to install. We're downloading all the assets. It's automatically detected my operating system. It's validated my license. It's grabbed all of the modules that we're going to need for the first application that we want to build, which is likely going to follow some of the tutorials that we're releasing. So we also download dashboards. We have that bundled, and the community edition license also includes the basically 5 free users for what you will need when you're building out your first set of dashboards. So everything's installed. I essentially can go to my terminal, type Q, and out of the box, I have the community edition license, I have my REPL, I have all the information I need to go learn more on the tutorial side, and I can use modules. So this, in the case of the AI libraries, here are all my time series and vector similarity search functions. So next demo is Parquet. And again, I have a terminal. I have a Parquet layout on disk. In this case, it is a partition data set. It's a simple partition data set. It's basically Aussie dollar, US dollar, and the file name depicts the month. So you can see 2016 November, and there are 253 files. So I jump to QStudio in this case. Ryan was meant to present today, so I've used QStudio. He couldn't make it. So I've started my KDB-X process. I might go a little fast, so I'll pause. So you can see I'm actually using kx.pq, which is the Parquet library, the Parquet module. In the first example, I define fx quote. Fx quote is just a single Parquet file, and pq actually returns a virtual table. So when I run meta, I see obviously the types that KDB-X has inferred. I can run a query, I can do 10 take, select from, I can do count out, see how many rows are in the virtual table and that particular Parquet file. And I can also run QSQL. So again, this is exactly what you would expect. This is another file format underneath the engine that is KDB-X. So the examples that I showed on the previous presentation was really about how do I take advantage of more Parquet files, right? It's very rare that you're going to work with a single Parquet file. So I use a slightly different submodule from the Parquet module. And in this case, I'm going to look at the Parquet / Aussie dollar USD folder. I'm going to grab all the files that are in that folder and their names. There are 252 files. I essentially I'm going to now create some metadata to describe the Parquet files and the layout. So part on line 35 is essentially where I link the name of the file and the file in this case to the partitioning, which in this case is month. So when I query on month, I should be able to basically predicate filter to the exact Parquet file that I need. And in line 39, I essentially make a partitioned virtual table. And I call that fx code all. Again, I can run meta. And I have a column called month, which is, I guess, akin to date partitioning in KDB world. And yeah, I can run all sorts of queries. I have, I think, an order flow imbalance query at the end, which kind of just shows some of the more complexity that we can do. It's not just simple queries. It is essentially the length and breadth of QSQL. We're obviously still benchmarking, and there'll be a lot more hopefully published in that regard. But I execute this query against that entire Parquet data set, which is a couple hundred gigs. And yeah, it executes in 3.5 seconds. And here's my data set. So that's that demo. The last thing I just wanted to touch on was, I guess, some upcoming research. So the database enhancements that we want to do are, I guess, connected to what we've done in Parquet. So this idea of n levels of partitioning, this is something that we've been talking to users about. They're very excited about it. And yeah, we think this is going to open up a bunch of new use cases for simplification, but also performance. It also, through this kind of concept of virtual tables, is going to help us simplify architecture. It's going to, both at the process level and at the HDB level. So having the ability to load multiple HDB databases into a single process is obviously one that I think everyone would like to see. Taking that one step further and actually looking at the S3 support, how we support Parquet, how we support open table formats. Iceberg obviously is probably the leader in that regard. And I guess just making the KDB format a little bit more applicable to cloud workloads and how we'll actually extend KDB to more use cases on the cloud. The last thing is kind of obvious. We're going to do module registries and package managers and all those good things to make it easy for everyone to contribute code, to contribute modules, to take advantage of some of the frameworks and source code that others have developed. And that's it for me, folks.